Fly with you fairies and happy late new year. This video would be considered a late Pixie Hollow 10th anniversary video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about all the different eras of Pixie Hollow. Now, those eras are not official or anything. I just like to view history and stuff in terms of eras. I made this video to recap Pixie Hollow's history and show how much the game changed over the 10 years. I know I made videos like that before. I'm kind of obsessed with that stuff, but I decided to make this video so you can view it in like this perspective because I haven't really done it before. I don't think many people have done it before. So I guess we'll begin with the first era then. So the first era we'll be talking about is what I like to call the pre-beta era. And it lasted, I'm not sure whether or not the Create Fairy began in 2006 or 2007. If you know, please leave a comment about it. I'd be very grateful. And it lasted till around August to September 2008. This era is the one before the online world officially opened. Back then, it was really just an extension to the Disney Fairies website, which was planned since 2005, I think. Users would log into their Disney account and could create up to 3 fairies. There are 4 talent options back then: light, garden, water, and animal. The Create Fairy looked different back then than it does today, and it includes the option to choose an outfit. The outfit selection had so many color options for clothes and accessories. Some of the oldest fashions include multiple belly tops, which basically show your fairy's tummy. And after you create your fairy, players could print her and go to her Pixie page. They could customize the page by decorating the fairy's home, customizing the profile, and they could even choose a quiz and a poll to add to the page. Players could also visit other fairies' pages to leave messages. They could also rate the fairy and add her to a friends list, which is really just a list of Pixie pages that you want to visit again. And even if the fairy gets deleted, the Pixie page link would still work. It just could be customized and the fairy could be used or anything. Players could also change the fairy's outfit with multiple beautiful talent colored clothing options. This version of Pixie Hollow was very, very limited compared to the actual online world, which had flying around and chatting and minigames and stuff. However, when the actual Pixie Hollow opened, that version stayed for a long time in international versions of the Disney Fairies websites. The next era is actually the shortest era on this timeline, and it's what I like to call the beta era, and it lasted for 1 month in the fall of 2008. For 5 days in early September, which is I guess when the era began, there are previews of the online world where players could preview the new game from 2 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. The beta version of the online world officially opened in September 20th, and the fairies could fly around the entire Spring Valley and 2 of the Autumn Meadows. They could also interact with and make friends with other players, play mini-games, earn badges, and craft fairy clothes. There's even a berry harvest festival event during that era. The Pixie pages remain, but the profile, fairy rating, and home decorating would now be in the actual game. If I did play during the beta, I don't remember much of it because I was so little, but I'm guessing there would be some glitches because it would be a testing period. Probably not as much as the Fairy ABC beta, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were some glitches during this era. Fairies that flew in during that era would receive a Founding Fairy badge and an acorn necklace. This was the very, very beginning of Pixie Hollow. Pixie Hollow's beta finally ended on October 22nd, 2008, and that began what I like to call the Golden Era, and it lasted until August 2009. The ending of the beta introduced a paid subscription service where paid players could experience everything the game has to offer, including the new shops, which were just added. I consider this era the Golden Age because people that played during this era view this time as golden, probably because they were so little. But this was an amazing year for the game, as it was growing with many huge updates and new features, which include Tinker Talent, almost all the current OG meadows, parties, the hair salon, wilderness, more crafting options, quests, and so much more were added during this era. It was a big time for Pixie Hollow. The Creative Fairies still had clothing options, but the clothing options were limited compared to the beta, and the colors were limited based on talent. Much of the clothing had the classic Pixie Hollow look and it was all nature inspired. Though many of the new features, such as the parties in the wilderness, were blocked behind a paywall, the game was still very fun for non-members. Like, I was a non-member during most of this era and I had a lot of fun. This era introduced many of the event traditions that we experience today. Most of the early events were as simple as decorated meadows, a quest, a badge, and maybe a free gift, but they were very fun and introduced lasting traditions. And one interesting thing I like to tell you is that the rating was removed during this era because rating doesn't really fit in an online world, so rating was just a beta thing. That's just a little tangent I just want to throw in here. This next era is what I like to call the development era, and this lasted from September 2009 to December 2010. This is the era in which I feel like the old Pixie Hollow, the golden age which I just talked about, changed to what I like to call the new modern Pixie Hollow. It began with a Creative Fairy change in September 4th, 2009. This feature was changed so the Creative Fairy would be a bit more like an actual arrival day, and this would unfortunately mean that the option to choose clothes when creating your fairy would no longer be available. This would instead be replaced with a talent colored outfit which any fairy, even non-members, could buy at Brooks Basics. This era was one in which a lot of people joined Pixie Hollow. Many of the features which defined modern Pixie Hollow were added, such as having to square, more minigames, animal friends, sparrow men, and larger homes. Unfortunately, this was a time when Pixie Hollow started to be stricter on the non-members, and specifically talking about this one update close to the summer of 2010, when the hairstyle Creative Fairy options were drastically cut short, and the talent-colored outfit from Brooks became boring white, and it deprived non-members of playing all the mini-game levels and earning many of the badges. But during this era, the events started to be more fun and interactive, such as the new Camp Pixie Dust, which added so much to Pixie Hollow's events, such as the Pixie Pals, event crafts, and so much more. Many of the other events, like the Ammo Masquerade, received major upgrades as well. The outfits sold during this era were still heavily inspired by nature, but they had a more modern look, kind of. I like to call this next era the modern era, from January 2011 to January 2012, because this is the era I think of when I think of modern Pixie Hollow. Many people played, the homepage changed in late 2011, the outfits were on the modern side, although there's always this nature inspiration added. Most of what was added during this era were new mini games, especially during the first part of 2011. There were a lot of new mini games added. A big part of this era were the exciting upgrades in many of the events. I found the first part of 2011 a very exciting time to play the game because of all the exciting new additions to the classic events. This era was unfortunately, in my view, the strictest era for non-members, as the game was very limited for them. Also, near the end of 2011, 2 out of 3 fairy slots were removed for new accounts, so new accounts would only have 1 fairy. But was still, I like to consider this era to be kind of like a modern Pixie Hollow, but not too modern. That title goes to the next era. And that new era is what I like to call the Pixie Diamond Era. and that lasted from January 2012 to July 2013. And I call this the Pixie Diamond Era because a lot of the game was focused on Pixie Diamond Eras. And this was a new purchase option, at least it was new at the time. It was added in January 2012, and the currency would cost real money, and it would allow anyone, even non-members, to shop. This would also allow both members and non-members to gain diamond exclusive items. All players would start with a very, very small amount of diamonds that you couldn't do much with, but luckily, members would get a monthly allowance depending on which subscription they choose. Along with the diamonds came the first diamond-only shop, the Pixie Post Office. Many of the shops were added during this era, but almost all of them were diamond-only. The only one that wasn't diamond-only was at the time the newest OG Pixie Hollow shop, Prism's Pixie Spa, that had ingredients and diamonds. And speaking of shops, this era also saw many controversial changes in them, such as the removal of Gavin's gear, and 3 of the dye shops were removed as well. Brooks Basics, the shop where non-members could easily get an outfit other than their arrival day outfit, was replaced with a diamond-only gardening shop, and Harmony's also changed into a diamond store. I feel like this era had the most complaints of wanting the quote-unquote old Pixie Hollow, aka the Golden Age, back. But there were many great things about this era too. In April 2012, not only was the gardening feature added, but non-members could finally explore the wilderness and play all the levels of the minigames again. I found the events to be very fun during this era too. Many of the new outfits during that time are a bit more mainland inspired. Several new things were added to the game, but especially in the spring and summer of 2013, I felt that the Hollow was dry on new additions, but most of the events are still amazing, especially the Wonderland themed Garden Tea Party. And now we're on to the depressing Apocalypse Era, which is also a really short 1 month long era that lasted from August to September 2013. So 2013, especially the summer, was sort of dry on events and updates, but no one expected that this one day would come. The day I'm talking about is August 20th, 2013, a seemingly normal day when there was a post on the Never News that Pixie Hollow would shut down on September 19th. This post devastated much of the community. So the reason behind the closure of Pixie Hollow, as well as Toontown and Pirates Online, is because Disney wanted to focus more on its biggest moneymaker, Club Penguin, so it was really like a financial decision. Pixie Hollow's last month had the end of Camp Pixie Dust and the end of Summer Sparkler, but there's also a farewell event in addition. Everyone received a free membership, there are extra pages and print buttons in the outfit book thing, shops were stocked with items from the past for sale, and event locations were open for free with giveaways from past events. Though this was a really cool event with a free membership and everything, it was also devastating because the game would close down. Some sent Disney emails asking to keep Pixie Hollow, and there was even a petition with hundreds of signatures. Unfortunately, they didn't work, and on the last day, many flew in for the last minutes of Pixie Hollow before the ultimate shutdown, and some even filmed videos which are on YouTube, and the ultimate shutdown brought forth the next era. This next era is unfortunately the longest era in this timeline. It's the Closure Era, and it lasted from September 2013 to May 2016. Pixie Hollow closed its servers at approximately 11:59 Pacific Time on September 19th, 2013. At the end of 2013, though, the Pixie Hollow community was still very active. There are even rumors that the Hollow would reopen in 2014, which were created from like web trash, I think. You know, I actually believe these rumors, but unfortunately those rumors turned out to be false, and the community moved on when everyone realized that. Early in this era, some created Pixie Hollow worlds on the site called Worlize, so fairies can still interact with other users and fly around in the meadows. Fairy ABC started development shortly after the closure, but in its early days it was just a website where you'd fly around the meadows and you can't do anything else really. So if you thought Fairy ABC was boring today, wait till you hear about the really early version, but the demos shut down after a short time. Fairy ABC reopened in the summer of 2015, and you'd be able to create an account. It is the same as the demos, only players could actually create a fairy, but the creation didn't save, and it was very difficult to get on that version, and when you were on, it was very glitchy. This version shut down shortly after. Near the end of this era, like in 2016 part, the Pixie community died out drastically to the point where it was almost dead and there was no hope. Most of the international Pixie Hollow sites were gone then too, and there was less hope that the promising remake would actually happen. But after 3 depressing years in this community, there is finally a light at the end of the tunnel. We're now at the dawn of Fairy ABC, which lasted during the summer of 2016. You could also call it the Fairy ABC Beta Era if you want to, but I'm calling it the dawn of Fairy ABC for now because why not? So things finally seemed to light up again when the first version of the current Fairy ABC opened on June 14th, 2016. This version was very glitchy and limited, but eventually the fairy creation would save and players could dress their fairy up in the shops and decorate their house. In August, there was a major update. Unfortunately, all accounts would be deleted for that update, but much more was added to the site, such as ingredients. Eventually, Frost Talent was added, which is the first new talent since 2008. And there's even the first ever famous fairy visit in Fairy ABC in August. The 1.0 peak era lasted from September 2016 to April 2018, and that was a time where Fairy ABC really began to flourish for the first time. It began with the addition of the new form, which allowed users to communicate with each other, hear about events, and share creative works. It also included user pages, the friend list, a leveling system which is used for like interacting with the form and stuff, and badges. Several new old Pixie Hollow outfits were added, and the Silly Suites returned with some new ones as well, like the Pikachu Silly Suite. But this era added many things that weren't in the OG Pixie Hollow, such as the beautiful new meadows, many wing options, and even a new shop with outfits that weren't in the original Pixie Hollow. Like the Fairy Circle shop has outfits that were in the OG Pixie Hollow, but there were a few that weren't. Fairy ABC did some events, but not too much. I'm talking about the admin events, by the way. And a few of those official events had special meadows. Many had decorated meadows that stayed decorated for months, and a few had famous fairy visits. Most of these events and community parties were in the earlier part of this era, like the 2016 part, which was around the holiday season. At that time, the site was full of people that visited because they missed the old Pixie Hollow. The very early part of 2017 was sort of dry on events and active players, at least drier than it is today a bit on events, and many stopped playing around this time, but starting around the summer, the community was full of parties again. Almost all of these parties were run by the community, and a few of them even had special appearances for famous fairies, like this one Talent Month event in the prom. Well, we finally made it to the dawn of 2.0 era, which began in May 2018 and it still continues today. We were finally beginning to see a new era approaching late in the previous era, like in early 2018, when Fairy ABC uploaded 2.0 previews on YouTube. In May, a playable teaser was added and this era began. I guess the 2.0 version would include a better wardrobe and decorating system, hair highlights, and a furniture dye shop. This version would add new things to the classic game, like 6 fairy slots, many new talents, especially compared to the original Pixie Hollow. There are like so many new talents now, and even makeup. In the earlier part of this era, like in the summer, 1.0 is still being updated. The Pixie Dust Tree location and the incredible Book Nook were added, but after that, 1.0 was no longer updated, and I'm guessing it will never be because I think they're focusing on 2.0 now. In the summer, the 2.0 teaser was removed along with a second login screen, but on August 4th, 2.0 was officially released, but 1.0 is still playable. However, 2.0 is very, very glitchy and limited, just like 1.0 was at first, and many chose to play the less glitchy 1.0 version. Later on, 2.0 was removed from player access, but did temporarily reopen for the Halloween event. This era had tons of events and parties. Most were run by the community, and several of those had visits from famous fairies. A few of the official admin run events, though, were in 2.0, and I can expect more of those official events to be on 2.0 as well. Currently, players could play 1.0 or 2.0 on Fairy ABC, but most choose to play the current main version, 1.0, but 2.0 continues to be updated, and I'm pretty sure it will soon flourish, just like 1.0 did, but better, with all the new features and stuff. When that happens, we'll all experience so many new features, and maybe it'll be more like the original Pixie Hollow, but with more features and free. And when 2.0 flourishes as 1.0 did, we would experience a new era out of many more, and I can't wait to see what Fairy ABC has in store for 2019 and beyond. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have anything to add, including if there was a 2006 Pixie Hollow or not, please tell me, and I'd love to hear from you because I find this thing to be really, really interesting. So thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.